great sense of community. My name is Solofelo Khatebe. I am a strategist, a solutionist, a UX designer, UX developer, product designer. You wear whatever cloak you need in order to be a vessel of your creative skills, in order to get the job. But I think more than anything, in this day and time of digital transformation, even as we're transforming, I think we become more title agnostic, and we are more attached to our skill set and what our skill set can deliver. So yeah, this is my talk, designing digital transformation, and I'm very thankful for Deirdre and Mariska and all the effort that it's taken for the IxDF to arrange this. And I think this is very great for the design community. So how I came with this topic is the fact that I've been in a lot of companies in the finance space who are digitally transforming currently, who are still learning about UX design. So like I've been working on a solo mission, being the only designer, having to deliver everything that a UX designer, and also being the person who has to preach the word in the organization about what our skill set actually delivers for people. So it's been inspirational in the sense that it's adversity, and adversity, when you are a creative person, you use it as inspiration. Just over here, I say dissatisfaction is an opportunity, and that perspective has always made me be able to see the bright side and see the gap that gets opened. So this talk is about how might we teach legacy businesses the value of design, because the landscape within which UX is very relevant is actually growing. Even though there are certain economical changes, and whenever companies are downsizing, us and research are always like the first to go, the first, we are nice to have in the vision of those who don't understand what our value is. And as a person, it can sound like I'm being biased and I'm speaking as a designer, but I'm actually also speaking more as an entrepreneur and understanding that currently the experience is the product and the service. So if companies are giving subpar experiences, that's going to be the difference between somebody taking a funeral policy with somebody like Capitec, which makes it easy and accessible, versus somebody more established at delivering funeral or delivering insurance. So yeah, that's the topic of choice today. So now, our first question, maybe also I've realized that a lot of people who are not in the design space are actually with us currently, and listening. So I would ask the crowd, how would you define what design is? That's the trick of the question. But right now, I would say that we are people who design solutions for a particular goal, a particular need, a particular service. So we use our creative wits to be able to attain solutions, and then UX design is doing that with product focus, and the experience towards and within the product. So then that begs the question of what is UX maturity? And now I want the people who aren't with us to also feel free to pitch their answers in the chat. I'll definitely pay attention to them. But does anyone have an idea of what UX maturity? Okay, that's fantastic. These are good signs, because then it means we're talking about something that is relevant, something that isn't really obvious in the space. So UX maturity is like with what measures an organization's design ability to successfully deliver user-centered design. So that it can go from a company that has no idea what UX is, companies in mining, some companies in the health department of it, where they don't have any sense of digital presence or landscape. Digitizing and digital transformation are not the same thing. Digitizing is going from paper to Word documents. But a digital transformation means that the company has almost taken a tech first stance, and how much further they're getting at being a technology first company, or a company where you can interface it if you're a technology first user. So UX maturity is how much a company like that really puts UX design into their processes. So it goes from absent, where people have no idea about it, they from leadership to the everyday people, they have no idea about it, to limited, unknown, and aspirational. Some people have heard about it, but it hasn't really come to their direct focus. And then where a lot of companies that aren't at the final stage, because I think what I've experienced so far in the South African industry is people are either emergent or user driven. So that we have user driven companies such as APSA, such as Old Mutual, even the likes of Capitec and MTN, where they understand the value of UX, they heavily invest in it, and not because it's, hey, he's going to make something pretty, he's going to make something nice to have. No, this is a person, these are people that we've aligned with to make accessing our services a lot easier. Because the more seamless it is to access our services, the more money we make. So they understand that we affect the revenue model. We have a legitimate place in the business conversation. So emergent, which is where I found myself over the past 3 years. I found myself in emergent spaces. And what I've learned is that, for instance, the head developer or the head of all the technical people is aware and has heard, of UX design, and then they hire someone like me, and they have a certain budget allocated to my skill set, and then now I must now be the one who works as a missionary preaching the gospel of UX in the organization, which there's pros and cons. The pros is, I've been in a company where it was user driven, and I mean, being a designer, imposter syndrome is part of the job. You never really feel enough. You never really feel like, and I have a better relationship with imposter syndrome now. I use it to drive me. I use it to understand that evolution is not a destination, it's a journey. And I'm just still evolving. But a user-driven space can be a pressure space on that front. Whereas when you are in emergent spaces, you really become an expert on the fundamentals, because you keep practicing the fundamentals, you keep practicing the basics and making people, how do you explain it to a fifth grader? How do you explain what the value of UX design? How do you understand business? Because now one thing you have in common with everybody from different divisions of the business is that we are all here to serve the business. So when you become better at illustrating how UX facilitates itself in business practice, in business strategy, in revenue models, you become a designer who does not only know how to thrive in a designer-driven space. And then that means that even when you face what can be currently happening, where a lot of companies might be divesting from UX in comparison to 2021, where there was a big boom, in the UX job market. Now it's a bit tighter, But when you're now working with understanding the fundamentals and understanding what purpose do we serve in business, that's when it even empowers you to be more title agnostic, And that doesn't mean we're abandoning UX design. That doesn't mean that we're abandoning this craft that some of us love, that some of us have found a lot of growth in. That means that you are always able to transform what people call the value bring. And sometimes in different spaces, that's an important skill. So it goes from emergent, where people are getting the idea of things, and then it becomes structured, semi-systemic, efficient to a degree. Now that's my goal. That's where I want to take things with the current spaces that I'm at. I want to get them to be more structured. I want to be the guy who refines the design system and who makes everybody in the team understand that, yes, at the end, the ultimate output is, yes, I've made a pretty design, but the goal, just like we spoke about in our last conversation about reducing the cognitive load, the goal is to make a stop sign. Now, a stop sign is not something ugly. You don't hate seeing a stop sign. It's not, so it was well designed, but the shape within which it's designed and the color red had nothing to do with beauty per se. It's instructional. It's a guide. you know. So you serve as the guide that whenever somebody is within the digital landscape, they know the next thing to do in the most efficient way. And then obviously, oh yeah, no, they're in. Thank you, Sumaya. Thank you for joining us. You're not that late. Yeah, so I mean, the ultimate goal obviously is to be able to be part of the team that takes an organization to a user-driven landscape where we are seen for who we are. And it's not only really about us being seen as who we are, but the user being seen as who we are. Because if I can give you an example, which is relevant to this conversation, is that MTN is a company that now understood their customers so well that they are now branching into a more financial inclusion space. So going from being a communication company to also addressing financial inclusion, you can only pivot into that direction successfully when you understand the customer that you're talking to. And even when we're talking about digital strategy or digital transformation, it's about understanding, looking at the entire journey that this client, customer, user is walking, and understanding what are their movements, what are their habits, what are they, and then therefore understanding what are the opportunities for us to be of more service to this person we interface with so much, you know. So if we're a cell phone company, we actually need to be an app company as well, because they're always dealing with their cell phones. We cannot, if people can do WhatsApp calls now, it means that they need MTN a little less now. But now when MTN understands their user, they make an app and they understand that actually we're one of the biggest telecom companies in Africa. And when you speak Africa, I'm not going to get too socio-economic, but there is a financial inclusion problem. So now when you understand the landscape of who you're dealing with and what challenges they face, then you understand the relevance of your solution and positioning it in the journey of their lives. And then that's why they've experienced so much success. So that's basically the foundations of the conversation we're having. That there are many a company in South Africa that need us, but they still need to be educated about how they can use us and why they need us. So does anyone have an opinion or thought on what is the business value of? I think I've touched on it a little bit already.
I think it's the one part of the business organization that prioritizes the user, advocate for the user, but you also find a balance where the user's first and also the business gets to meet its objectives. So we find a middle ground where everybody's happy and also find the best way to solution for that.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, why is the user important to a business? If you are speaking to people in the business department, we're here to make money. Why is that important?
I think in business, we really refer to our users as users, call them customers, because they're the revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
So we find a way to make sure that our revenue stream is catered for, but also it also just attaches and works to helping the business grow. So if the customer is happy, they will do business with us, and that makes us make revenue. So it's in everybody's best interest that the client is happy.
100%. Thank you for that answer. So
just a little bit to add there, what we must remember is that our employees are our internal customers. And the interfaces and how we design for internal use is as important as it is for our external customers.
I like that perspective, you know, and I haven't really put that conversation in here, but that's also why I prefer calling users humans. You're always dealing with humans. You should, as a designer, you should always be thinking about humans, because at the same time, like I'm saying, becoming title agnostic is once you know that you have the skill set of how to design processes that make things more human friendly, then it means that you can even now branch your skills outside of just an interface. Now you're dealing with a branch. Understand? You're dealing with an internal system. Because at the end of the day, you're not just thinking about, okay, at some point they need to press the pay button, the subscribe button. Sometimes you're just helping, empowering somebody to be able to accomplish a goal with the landscape that you've created. You know, thank you so much for that. So just like he said, happy clients are what the business value UX brings. Improved customer loyalty and retention. You know, and as somebody who's also worked in the startup space, I can tell you that especially because even these big companies need to have a startup-based thinking in order for the apps they build to be of value, and in order for these apps to actually be another revenue stream, you need to have a startup mentality. Therefore, being able to retain clients is not just about, hey, I just got somebody. It's about, how do I keep this person? How do I keep a relationship with this person? Now, for instance, I'm going to use MTN again, or even let's use another company, Capitec. They are a finance company. You see, I've already even gotten to the end of my statement by saying they're a finance company. I didn't say they're a bank. I said they're a finance company, which also means that they can be disruptive even in the insurance space. Because right now they are interrupting other companies that just said, no, we're in this corner of finance where we are insurance people, we're in this corner of finance, we're in the funeral space. They understand that to the client, I am finance. If I can help them interface with their money better, I am helping them in an easy and efficient way. So that type of pivoting is only possible. That type of agility comes from understanding users, and I wish I could put that value that we bring to business in a better sentence, but that's what this talk is about. It's about facilitating that better conversation. A stronger brand reputation, that's self-explanatory. Better word of mouth marketing. I mean, people are very likely to refer. When you are able to even share on your phone, if something good happens and you're able to share, that builds a sense of trust. Word of mouth, as a person who also has a marketing background, I will tell you that there is no better marketing than word of mouth, because they already trust that person. That person there's already a personal relationship with that person, because before we're dealing with interfaces, before we're dealing with all these mechanics that we've made as humans, we're dealing with human beings, and the human relationship. Higher conversion rates. So obviously, if it's a more seamless journey, if it's easier for me to purchase the shirt that I want to buy, just for instance, then I'm going to buy more shirts. I'm going to come back and I'm probably going to buy more. Increased sales and revenue, a competitive edge in the market. And my favorite one that I always use to make them understand, especially from a developer perspective, is you're able to prototype and test ideas with users before development. So by the time in a mature UX environment, we are supposed to prototype and test first, get it in front of the user, know that this is actually what the humans want. This is what the humans are reacting to what we built in the way that we have designed to. And it's not based on assumption. Another thing I prefer and love about UX design in comparison to the various landscapes of design, because we're prototyping, it's not about arguments, it's not about debates, it's about results. The users reacting the way that we designed it, and then from that point, the data and the results of the testing help you push your ideas further. So there's an element of democracy that can be facilitated in a UX mature environment. Yeah, so I mean, if I was talking to a business person and I had to translate the business value, sometimes they prefer numbers. So I mean, these are things that if you're dealing with a place that needs to up its level of UX maturity, you can say, according to the Spiraletics, every dollar invested in UX returns 100 rand, 100 rands, or $100. For every dollar, it's $100. It's an increased conversion rate by 200%, according to the Forrester research. 84% of customers say what I said earlier, that the experience is part and parcel of the product and service. It's not separate. So people aren't using your app and thinking, no, but this is the app, the company is better. You know what I mean? To them, it's like, okay, if the app works well, if the whatever process has been facilitated works well, then the company is working well. So revenue is increased by 66%, and people are willing to pay more. People are willing to pay more for better customer service. And that goes without saying. I think people just, because they don't assign us, the people who are not UX mature don't assign us with the job of being the person who facilitates smoother processes. They're like, this is the person who makes it pretty, who makes it nice. You know what I mean? Whereas with the person who facilitates smoother processes, 3-click rule, reducing the cognitive load. You're just making it easier for a human to accomplish their goal in a digital landscape. And the easier it is for me to accomplish my goal, the more I see you as a partner to accomplish my goal. And that's especially relevant in our time now of AI, where we are going to need to design digital partners. We're not only just designing a space where they can compute something and then what we've computed, comes back to us. No, we are actually prompting something and the AI has a response, has a response that can be beyond what we knew the response would be. So we're facilitating a partnership. So even if you're designing even from the AI space, the more you can facilitate a trustworthy or easily understandable landscape, the more people will interact with you. So that's why OpenAI is the face of AI currently, simply because they picked a chat interface to be how we commercialize AI into the world, because everybody knows how to facilitate a chat, and it doesn't take that much. That mental model is very accessible for people, So what is digital transformation? Does anybody have an opinion or thought on what digital transformation is and maybe assist?
Not at all. I just want to say there are messages in the chat. I don't know if anyone else had said something before.
Okay, thank you so much. I couldn't see. Oh, can you speak a little louder and clearer? Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Shumaya, for mentioning that. I think I'm just going to sit closer to the computer. I'm good. Thanks. So does anyone have an opinion on what digital transformation is? Yeah, let me finish because I'm almost there. I'm on a roll here. I hope, can you guys hear me better? Can somebody please respond with a thumbs up if you guys can hear me better?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so digital transformation. I think in summary, especially this is something that I've had to research a lot because the work I'm currently doing involves me taking a traditional businesses, and now recontextualizing them for the digital landscape. So, like I said, digitizing is different from digital transformation. Digitizing can be, we used to use paper and now we use Word docs. We used to, having a WhatsApp group is digitization. That's not a digital transformation, it's just digitization. We're using something digital to do what we normally did. A transformation means that the business is changing. The revenue model is changing. We are making money from the digital landscape that we create. We are creating another avenue for profit within the digital landscape. So that's an example. I don't have a good example right now off the top of my head. I feel like Capitec is a good example, but I don't know if I'm saying it in the best way. I'm going to give it a try. I'll say that they are selling insurance now, and also funeral packages. And it's primarily powered by the fact that they have an app that a lot of people use. We can have many opinions about how efficient, how trustworthy the app is. They can be different, but people use it. And therefore, by the time that they're offering another product, which is outside of what they traditionally offer, because people are used to interfacing with this landscape, with this interface, it's easier to make that purchase. And to the point where they are disrupting their competitors who already have a long standing in that space simply because they're accessible. So that's the competitive advantage that digital transformation has. And as UX designers, we are the very foundation of these transformations. Yes, it can be spearheaded by people, the developers, because they'll understand on it's like the engine. They understand the engine of the car, and they understand how far can we take it with what we innovate. But the difference between, listen, I'm not an Apple fanboy, but I will say that they had been winning the race against Samsung because of design thinking, because of UX. So they understood, what does a person use a cell phone for, as opposed to, I am going to put as much cool technology in the cell phone. They understood the context of the human, that actually all technology should be an extension of the person and of the person expressing themselves. That's why they call it iPhone, because it's an extension of I. And then they kept playing on our, self-centered is a negative word, but humans are very self-involved. And as humans are very self-involved, the camera is going to become so important. So even as Huawei and Samsung are really innovating, and some things that Apple does, they're delayed in comparison to the guys who have a better technology stack. But because they know how to contextualize it to users, because they contextualize it into the experience of the people, that when I'm using my phone and I'm experiencing life, I want to take pictures, I'm also on social media, I have an identity, I'm sharing memories with family members in the human experience. They're like, okay, let's double down on the camera. And then that becomes what makes them sell. So that's the difference in what a design thinking has in a digital transformation space. Yes, you should think of the most innovative technology, but that's not going to be what really dictates who has most power in the market. So if we break it down, it's adopting a technological process. Sometimes people were still doing things very analog. Now they adopt a technological process and a technological landscape that can empower them to do more. And then it's about elevating the customer focus. That's also where we come in, because technology is very expensive, but the return on investment comes when you really build the right thing for the right people. And that's our job. We are the ones who help them gain that insight, because also in a technology landscape, we are the right brain thinkers that they need. Most people who interface with technology, highly intelligent individuals, very isolated. They don't deal with humans and EQ a lot, and they also don't like it. But that also means that they can build something that's out of context with the rest of humanity. Whereas we're the people who are constantly talking to others and being able to find the consistencies with what a lot of people are saying, what a lot of people are saying their problem is, and figuring out what the solution to that problem is. Data-driven decisions. That's when a company now decides to really use analytics a lot more and a lot of information about clients to make their decisions. So it's not only about, it shouldn't only be about titles, it should be about what is the data saying to us? What do we know about our clients from how they've been interacting with us, and how can that fine-tune our decision making? And then those three cornerstones result in shifting organizational culture. The culture of the organization changes. It becomes less about bureaucracy, about titles, and more about insight. Yes, there will be those levels, like any landscape, but sometimes then the levels become dictated on who has the most insight to be able to really affect the revenue model of the business. So why are companies digitally transforming? They are digitally transforming to enhance the user and customer experience. So that's where we come in. And us knowing that that's where we come in is empowering us to be able to communicate what they need to understand in order to understand why they need to hire us, why we need to continue to build our team, why we can be expensive. A really refined UX designer can be expensive, but just like we said, for every dollar, it results in $100. And when they realize that that's based on data, then it becomes easier to really invest more into what can transform and extend the business to becoming continental, to becoming international. They are leaving money on the table. There are revenue streams that they're missing out on by not engaging digitally. You can imagine how some of these companies that have been successful in building their own app and interfacing with their clients, what money they would have left on the table if they didn't make that decision. It's digitally transforming enhances collaboration capacity. I can tell you that not everybody can work remotely. Like a lot of the working remotely is even going backwards, like bringing people back into the office. I don't know why. They probably know why. There's probably a bigger business reason why. Maybe you'll be more attached to the business, more attached to the company, less moonlighting. But the capacity to be remote lowers operational costs, because now you can enhance your team but you don't have to enhance your office space. So that's why they need to digitally transform. They collect data and gain new insights, and they streamline processes in order to enhance productivity. So yeah, so I think that that's also something valuable. Like in us jotting down all these journeys, one of the skill sets we have is that we actually know how to streamline a process. How do we make this shorter? So that's what I'm also saying when I'm saying like UX design goes beyond even the small corner that they've given us. We are able to transform the entire company as a whole with our skill set, So yeah, and it results in if a company develops a product, because they have a digital landscape where they interact with their clients consistently in a successful way, we have a faster time to market. You just deploy the product, it's there the next day, people see it, a notification comes on, however you choose to communicate, people can purchase it there and then. So that's why it's needed, because that's the world we live in now, where people gain an instant access to things, and then it encourages employee excellence. Does anyone have any questions thus far?
Well, from saying they're leaving money on the table, and I think of the post office. Granted, it's got its own, there's a lot of other things there, but you walk into it and it still feels like it's stuck in the 2000s.
Exactly.
So digital transformation would really be good for that. A lot of the post-government run organizations.
100%, 100%. So that's where we come in. Like I'm saying, I think once the design space also champions digital transformation, it enhances the landscape of where we can exist. We don't only have to exist in fintechs and banks where they've already discovered our value and they know how to really captivate and capture our value, because we're dealing with money, something people interface with every day. But if everything can be improved by UX, we are improving the way we interact with the world. The world becomes better, more seamless from our insights.
It's done. Because you see they're attaching their stations to the banks now, so you can even digitally on your bank app for ID straight to the home affairs.
Oh,
That mitigates the process of the experience of waiting long in line for home affairs, having to wake up at 3 a.m. just to be in home affairs.
yeah,
I see like they've done.
I think even and to add to that, I think even if Home Affairs could have just done it on their own, that would have been better. Because now they're piggybacking off of the insight that the banks have, and then it becomes, it becomes a conflict of interest, because if something is a public institution, then it should serve the public first, And I think the banks are just doing what they should do, in terms of capitalizing on an opportunity. But I think that if Home Affairs could just work on its own, where there's a Home Affairs app, it's better for Home Affairs. They keep all our personal data, because at the end of the day, exposing our personal data to a private organization is not always to the benefit of the public. It becomes conflict of interest. But I don't want to get political. Yeah, so key UX strategies for successful digital transformation is, so as a UX designer facilitating a digital transformation. And I think this talk also applies to organizations that serve as suppliers of UX designers. Now it enhances the landscape of who else can we talk to and make them understand the use of our designers. Who else could be an opportunity for us to really place our designers in order for them to take the company to another level. And now if a UX designer has a great strategy of how they're going to digitally transform a very frustrating place, because I can tell you it's very frustrating, but I'll get into that just now. So the first thing is human-centered design thinking. The more we utilize our ability to research, understand the user's needs, preferences, and pain points intimately, that, for instance, becomes the cornerstone of everything else we do after that point. Because I can tell you that not everybody has an intimate understanding of their clients, especially if they are selling something that is so common that you don't want to really, a basic need doesn't have a target market. And then sometimes that means that people neglect really understanding the people who are responding to that need that you're providing. Because even if, let's say you're selling water, right? Everybody drinks water, but only certain people buy alcohol. And you need to understand, okay, what influenced that decision? Even though we're selling something, everybody sells, everybody has access to it in the tap, all those things. What type of person makes the decision of buying this water, And how can we optimize our relationship with that person, right? And then obviously prototyping and testing, because prototyping and testing is there to help save money, help to save developer time, helps to really save us from technical debt as well, So collaboration across teams. Something someone said here is Moin, you said something about serving as a bridge between different departments. That's who we are, and I'm glad that I found this online, because then it doesn't feel like I'm projecting my experience onto the UX design landscape. But that's been my experience. Because I understand business, because I understand marketing, and then now as a UX designer, I'm in the context of dealing with developers. I've always been like the middle child in the middle of an argument of family, trying to mitigate this argument, because once you really understand the certain challenges that come with the different landscapes you're in, some things are very cultural, as in it, the challenges can be different from company to company, but you are the one who builds the bridge. And you are also building the bridge based on your understanding of the user, based on your understanding of what purpose is your company serving to the user, and based on when you've prototyped and tested, what was the insight that you found that's beyond debate. Once we take that insight and we all bring the team together with that and coordinate the team around that, I believe that that's what really creates a successful digital transformation. And then obviously measure and analyze UX metrics. So the key metrics include user satisfaction, task completion rates, and user retention. So you're doing the right thing when users are completing their tasks. You're doing the right thing when you ask the users. You facilitate a questionnaire to measure their satisfaction. So when you get user satisfaction, and also when users are coming back, that's the most important thing, because I can tell you, building an app, for instance, is very expensive, and it costs you money every month. And the sooner you get to return clients and you're building the user base, the sooner you become successful enough to continue existing. Because at the end of the day, it's a fight for existence. And our skill set helps companies continue to exist and not just exist to thrive. An omni-channel experience. I'm still mastering this understanding. It's something that I've been told and I'm just doing it, but to really understand the full maximum, because when I say omni-channel experience, I mean it should be the same on my cell phone, it should be the same on desktop, it should be the same when I use a tablet. Hey, from where I come from, so many people use their cell phones that I haven't really seen the full maximization and value of being omni-channel, but I think it is good practice. It shouldn't be that I can use my phone and then when I go to the desktop, something's wrong with my phone. Then when I go to the desktop, it's bad. That I think it's more of we're avoiding a negative, because it's a negative that it's good here, but when I get to the desktop, it's terrible. That's a negative. So maybe that's the value, but that's what I know thus far. Then obviously data-driven decisions, we've spoken on that, and focusing on accessibility and inclusivity. I still want to master this myself. I understand its value. The more people with visual impairment, disabilities, language barriers, the more that they can just interact with our design, the better. And then, these are the challenges that I've faced. I feel passionate about one of them. Well, two of them, actually. But this is what you face in the transformation. Resource allocation. Sometimes because people don't understand your value, it's very expensive, because a designer uses a MacBook. Simple as that. And that can be like, why do I need to spend 40,000 rands to 90,000 rands for a laptop? I give everybody a Dell, we will give you a Dell, And I can tell that that's a terrible experience for a designer. It's too slow. The pixels on the screen are not good enough in order for you to. So you've been there. Please tell me your experience. Do you have anything to share about your experience?
No, it's fine. You just triggered something.
Yeah, it's a very triggering experience. It's terrible. It's abysmal. You know, I haven't even used that word in a sentence before, but that's how integrated it is. It's abysmal. You know, but when you emphasize the long-term cost savings and business benefits of UX, it's better. But I won't lie, if you don't have buy-in from leadership, it becomes a huge barrier. It becomes a huge barrier. But that just means that if you find yourself in that context, keep trying to get leadership buy-in. That's the first task. Then how do I get leadership to actually understand that I'm actually here to help us compete better in the market? You know, okay, and then complexity of integration. Design thinking simplifies the process by mapping out user workflows and identifying opportunities to streamline operations. So yeah, sometimes integrating yourself in an already existing system can be difficult. I think that in my experience, to be honest, people have tried to be inclusive. You know, I think I've been lucky in that yes, they'll say stuff like, yeah, he's here to make the stuff look pretty, you know, which I consider condescending, but they have tried to make space, you know, and at the end of the day, by the time you're there, there is some form of leadership that has buy-in with what you do, and they have told that the rest of the team that, hey, make this person a little bit more comfortable. But yeah, it's a process. It's one of the tasks. In fact, I don't see it as a challenge as much as I see it's one of your tasks. Find a way to make yourself part of the business process. Balancing innovation and usability. So this challenge is also why we exist. People can try and innovate. You know, I've seen that people can make really good products that, I don't want to call it a product yet, really good systems that on a system level, on a technical level, as a developer, you've really made something really special. You really put something together where the interest rate is really great, and the technology stack is really great. But I don't understand what you're talking about. Web3, for instance, the everyday person doesn't really know what that is, and developers were so crazy about it in 2022. Yes, there are political reasons, probably empowering the individual is why Web3 didn't get those commercialized. But I feel like somebody could have at least contextualized it for the everyday person, for them to be able to understand an interface. So no matter how great your technology is, if you can't contextualize it, we wouldn't have MacBooks and laptops if those people at that time, you know, arguably Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, if they didn't understand that, listen, in order to take this thing that the CIA and governments use to really run their countries, you know, and contextualize it in the everyday home, we needed to translate that into something that speaks to their everyday lives. You know, how is a computer relevant to my everyday life? And how does this solution help my life to be better? With us, we were kind of raised with these things. So we never faced that problem. But to somebody who was running, playing outside, living a human life, the incentive of dealing with this contraption was very minimal, you know? And then this one, guys, I don't know. I need brainstorm. I need you guys to also put your brains. Cultural resistance. If people just have you know, sometimes, for instance, you don't always win every argument with facts, guys, but the truth. If somebody doesn't want to believe you, if somebody has decided in their mind that you are wrong, I don't know how to deal with that. I don't know. I wait. What I do when I disagree with people, I wait, because if my solution is relevant, the opportunity of relevance is coming. You guys are just gonna have to learn when it's too late. You know why I still feel like that's not the best answer? Because our value comes in seeing problems there in the distance and mitigating, you know, the loss of that early on. So when people rob us of that opportunity to be of value in terms of our foresight and insight, I wish I need more. I need more. If you guys can tell me another way of, oh yes, there's a hand. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm listening, brother.
Yeah, evening everybody. Yeah, I'm gonna just segue a little bit and touch broadly on cultural resistance, especially in digital transformation. I've been in organizations where the big consulting companies come in, your McKinseys and whatnot, and they suggest or they propose digital transformation as a strategy going forward for these companies, but nobody really understands what it is, right? And they might suggest technologies and methods and whatnot, and you will experience that resistance no matter what. And you're brought in as a UX designer in that space with people who are used to doing things their own way. The culture there is so entrenched that they don't think digitally. So in situations like that, you find that people were not taken along in the journey from the beginning. People were left behind. These decisions are made up top without any buy-in from the people that are supposed to implement these strategies. So I've been in both sides of the coin where there's massive cultural resistance. I've been on the other side where you see when people are involved right from the beginning. For instance, before taking on a project, we do a design thinking sort of workshop, and every single stakeholder is invited. And when I say stakeholder, everybody who has a vested interest in that space is invited and taken along in the journey. I've seen how those people will sort of take ownership, and there's a cultural change in those spaces where they actually feel like it's their thing. They own it. They wanna drive it as well. They come up with solutions. They're interacting. They understand the value of design thinking. They understand the value of being client centric, and all the things that we as UX stand for. All those values that we wanna impart into the organization. So immediately when people are involved right from the beginning, that cultural change takes place, and it's not an easy process, but I've seen how it can make life easier for a lot of designers. Yeah, that's just the caveat I wanted to add.
Oh, that wasn't a segue. That was right on the money. Thank you so much for that. Because one of the things I've tried, which it sounds like it's gonna get me results. Make people figure out what's their personal incentive in participating in this transformation. Because chances are them elevating and evolving with where things are going is better for their career overall, not only in the organization you are currently in with them, but in their career going forward. If they attain the skill set, if they play ball, then they're transforming with the rest of the industry as well, and therefore expanding their opportunities. Thank you so much for that. Okay, and then the UX web of frustration. Shame, man. Guys, whenever we talk about UX, guys, we never talk about what we go through. We always talk about users. It's almost like we kind of forget ourselves, in a way. And I mean, we all react differently, right, to challenges. So in the first thought, I wanted to say, you're a designer. This is how you're going to feel. I was like, we're different people. We're going to face certain challenges. We're going to respond to them differently. So first of all, biggest problem, inaccurate perception of UX. You're the guy here to make things look pretty. That's inaccurate. I think maybe if you're only a UI designer, maybe they can say that because you're just focusing on the aesthetic value. But even there, I'm shy to go that far. But an inaccurate perception of UX results in a depleted job market, results in no stakeholder buy-in, right? And then that's what also results in inefficient resources. Why me and the brother over there had to use Dell computers, and guys, it's not pretty. I have to use my own personal machine sometimes in order for me to get into a streamlined process of working. Yeah, it's not pretty. And inefficient resources, and then that can result in no measurable impact, which then also results in a depleted job market within UX. Now, all of this, different forces, they create a predicament for us. So that's why UX maturity is a problem for us as a whole, as UXs. I think that, yes, you could have a top position in UX and you could be working for a company that has a high UX maturity, but the prestige of UX loses if the industry as a whole has an inaccurate perception of UX, you know, and when they start divesting, everybody loses from that. And the way forward that I would suggest, you know, and I'm also definitely listening to ways forward. Please raise your hand if you also have solutions to the problems that are presented. But yeah, get people to listen by showcasing small UX wins, you know. And it's so weird. Like my recent small win was just making a notification screen. They didn't make a notification screen, right? But I understand, you know, sometimes you're actually trying to trim the fat as much as possible when you're design, especially from a developer perspective. But then mental models, you know, existing mental models are so powerful. Like if somebody just knows what to do, that's already satisfying for the user. So small UX wins of I contextualize why. Why? Because what they wanted is something where if a notification just pops up or if some alert pops up, they only need to press one button and then everything gets initiated. First of all, even that one button is a bit complicated because there should always be a back button, an exit button. So I had to be like, okay, let me do what they want me to do, but let me see what are the limitations of that. And then we got back to two buttons eventually. But it showcased the win because it was like they can do the one button because it's not just about what's it called? It's called an exom law. Exom's razor, something like that. Occam's razor. Occam's razor. There we go. Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually the best one. So Occam's razored it and understood that no, but they could. It's not just a notification to give them information, but a product can be sold here. You know, when you're dealing with UX maturity, you are also selling wheels. We all know a car needs wheels, but these people have never built a car before. And they're like, but what if a car didn't have wheels, man? You know? And honestly, flying cars are a wonderful idea, but the tech stack needs to make sense. And there need to be roads or laws. So for the simple fact that there isn't roads and laws, we need some wheels, you know? And sometimes a wheel is a win in these situations. I promise you. I promise you. Build a culture of support in UX at all levels, gather momentum, and move forward across the organization. So, yeah, you have to be in a lot of people's territory. You know, I'm in the marketing department, and I mean, yes, creatives on a personality level, they are more like us. You know, the graphics designers are more like us. The copywriters are more like us, culturally speaking. But you're still to them, you're like, what are you doing here? You know, and you need to be able to take them on the journey as well, just like Kenzo said, you know, build that culture of support for UX and, you know, focus on building awareness and understanding of UX, which is why I'm very grateful that I even have some colleagues in here. Hi, Kabelo. Yeah, some colleagues who joined here. So I also try to take them onto the journey of UX maturity by inviting them to this. And then improving the UX processes by applying a constant and intentional approach to systemizing methods and means of collaboration. Yeah, so, you know, that can go with sprints, Google sprints. That's not in every company, guys. I know some people might be surprised. Not everybody's doing sprints. Not everybody's doing agile. Not everybody does their stand-up remotely. Still, you know, some people still do stand-ups physically. And you being the guy who brings that forward, you know, can really look good for you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So what's the vision going forward? I presented all these problems and some solutions. And what's the vision in my view is understanding your skill set, understand what you can do. UX designers are different. Some people are better at optimizing for the revenue model. Some people are really good at making something like last week when we were speaking about cognitive load and how you still need to add a sort of flair for the brand. You know, some people are UI designers that are really good at enhancing how great an interaction looks and how exciting it can be for the eye. So understand your skill set, right? And then from there on, always position yourself as that person, you know. Understand actually understand your deliverable more than you understand your job title. Because that same deliverable can have different titles wherever you go, you know, and then understand problems. So become a person who specializes in understanding problems, you know, in that part of define in the design thinking part of define the problem. Become an expert at defining problems, because once you just become an expert problem solver, really the sky is the limit, and it also makes you actually understand how far UX can go. Because now with these Asian cars, they have so much design thinking in them. They have so much UI, like, because previously cars were just approached as, listen, you need to get a license and you need to know how to drive. Now cars are being optimized to making good driving more accessible. Like by even with sound, like a car can make a certain sound if to alert you that you can't see in your blind spot. There's certain colors that show you that, okay, a car is really coming on this side. And I mean, the age old, even when you're reversing, that sound that comes from really empathizing with users and not just saying you need to know how to parallel park. And yes, guys, we should all know how to drive at our best abilities, but that's the power of UX, that it makes a high skill environment more accessible for people, which is also what this AI era is all about. That's another debate, whether that's good or bad, but it's happening. So we should facilitate and become part of that process. And in my vision, go beyond titles so that if they start investing in UX, you still fit somewhere else. You still can squeeze yourself somewhere else. So thank you so much for your time, guys. In understanding my skill set, I'm a strategist. I'm connecting business to technology and design, and I'm blending product design expertise for digital transformation leadership. I appreciate your time so much. This is the community that a lone soldier like me needs. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Hands up. I see a hand. Did I see a hand or was that somebody clapping? Oh, they're clapping. Oh, okay. Shucks. Okay, guys, we're gonna eat some pizza now. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sorry, I have a question. I have a question.
Yes. This is time for questions.
Yeah. So I'll just speak from my personal experience. Being in an environment where there is that lack of, when you're talking about digital transformation and really having the company leaders having a challenge or maybe still sticking to legacy way of doing things, that as a designer, as a UX designer, I was involved in some project where I needed, because I was working on an internal platform, right? And they were the actual users, the executives sitting in a bit higher places, and because of that resistance, I encountered a challenge where, come the time of doing user testing, conducting interviews, it was just a mission to get them to come on board. And understandably so, but still not understandably so, because they're sitting, obviously they're in meetings back and forth, they have appointments and all of that. And so much that they don't make time to actually invest their time in being available to conduct user testing and have interviews, just to get to understand their understand how they use their legacy systems in order for me to digitize them, right? So how do you deal with that challenge of resistance in that manner, where they are not available to participate in, in such environment, like in your user testings or your interviews?
Okay, thanks for that great question. Does anyone have an idea of?
And by the way, I was trying to really push that agenda, and I was told that if I talk too much, I'll be, somebody whispered in my ear and said, if you talk too much and you try to push the agenda, you're really working on a thin line. So that was a challenge. I'd like to maybe get your view on that. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone online have an answer for the brother? Okay, so my question then, is are you allowed to tell us what problem you were trying to solve for them?
So it was an internal, so just digitizing some of their manual process, right? So they had a manual process that they were doing with the using your Excel sheet, filling in numbers and whatnot. So the problem was that because of that manual process, right, things took long, and the company really saw some decline in the market because their processes took longer for them to reach the market, and the competition was ahead of them most of the time. Because of that, you can imagine a spreadsheet in Excel sheet. Sometimes there's some errors there that needs to be corrected manually and so on and so forth. So my role was just to digitize that process.
Okay, and then there were no junior versions of them that could have participated.
No, because that was a very high level decision making process where they need to actually see what's happening, right? And they are the decision maker sitting at the top, and they are the one who are actually filling in all that data. So there were not really junior persons below who were really helping. So that was a bit of a challenge because, I mean, you can imagine, to ask for a meeting, to ask for and by that time, I mean, the business requirement document is out as to what are the requirements. But also for me, it was a matter of, okay, as a designer, I need to understand 1, 2, 3, right? Of course, everything's there in the BRT, but I needed to engage with them so that I empathize with them, so that I can be able to address the issues at hand. Because sometimes they are coming, I'm getting all of this information from the business analyst, but from the UX point of view, for me to make design decisions, I need to be able to support my design decisions based on the engagement with the users. So if the users themselves are not available, then I can't. It's a challenge because I can't thumbsuck the designs or the design decisions that I make. You understand?
Yeah. Okay. So my usual solution when you don't have access to users, nah, and I know to give you a very comprehensive answer, I need to personally engage with you. I won't lie, but I'll give you the rule of thumb: data.
Yeah.
And when I say data, I mean, if you do your research, how have people solved this kind of problem before? That's why I was asking you, Uguti, what problem are you actually solving? Because it sounds like it's too complex for you to interface this problem with their secretary, somebody who knows them very well and deals with them every day, so maybe the Excel spreadsheet might be too complicated for them. But at the end of the day, we need to find accessible mental models. So what have been the simplest ways people have simplified Excel spreadsheets and to be able to interface with this? It's really about trying to figure out what's the simplest version of doing this thing. So I'll use the AI example. AI is a very complex and layered phenomena because it's something that takes existing data and combines it to make new information. And that sounds even more complicated when I say this. But now if you're saying what you know, a human communicates with a knowledge base. And in that knowledge base response, then what is the simplest way people communicate? So it depends on the goal, on the problem. Like you figure out, with this problem that I'm solving or with this goal, what is actually the simplest way in this landscape? So if you say communication, on a digital landscape, what's the simplest form of communication? Chat. Then that's how you get to it. So whatever, I don't, when you say Excel, you're being very broad. But whatever it is in there, like it's like, what helps people make calculations? What is the simplest form of people doing calculations? Then that's because those are the quick wins, especially when doing UX too much can affect your survival. You need to get the quick win so you can be there longer and make incremental changes. And sometimes we want to do something innovative and great because it looks good on our portfolio and it makes us feel great. but we need to take the quick win so that we can keep making the change incrementally and then keep interfacing with the problem yourself. So that even if you're not allowed to do your solution immediately, you've built it to the point that when it's time, when they've given you room, you're able to introduce it. I hope that's answered you, Stone.
Yeah, I think that's the route that I took actually, because it was just a matter of, just work with what I have and be able to present it back to them whenever they have time. Then hopefully that should be able to answer their question. But that also impacted now the project delivery, because now if there's certain deadlines and there's certain sprints that are in place, then it affects the delivery of the deadline because of the availability for them for us to have a review session. Yeah,
I know the best thing you can do is just build it so that you don't affect your delivery time. Build it to the best of your abilities. Go your hardest, even interface with other designers so that at least from a designer landscape, we've built something useful. All right, Stone.
Cool.
Thank you. Khutazo, I
Thanks for
saw
that.
your mic. Away, brother. Khutazo, I saw your mic was on, so I'm not gonna let you escape that easily.
No, it was when you were basically sending us off. I was gonna say thank you, and well done, and yeah, that was all.
Okay. Does anyone in the crowd have any questions, even if it's not about today's specific talk? We've got a bunch of UX designers and people here, so let's take advantage of the community we have right now. Okay, everybody just wants pizza, guys. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for everybody's time. Have a great day. Thank you so much for engaging with us and to many more, and may it grow. Thank you. Bye-bye.